opportunity because literally I feel like people have been cramped up in their house for the last 2 years. We've noticed in many different industries and in talking to a lot of people is a direct correlation between the nonstop media talking about COVID and now the main story is what's unfortunately going on in Ukraine and people feeling more comfortable being out, right? I've noticed with a lot of my other friends that own businesses, right around the same time that the news changed, people started going back to the offices more. It's pretty interesting. But outside of that, what is the opportunity? The opportunity is for you guys to start connecting with people, right? So I would like you to 0 to 1 is let's make a list of every person in the last 12 months that's referred you business. That's step 1. Step 2, let's see in the month of March. Great job, client event. In the month of March, let's see if we can schedule a coffee meeting at very least with all those people. If you're not meeting people in person, you're missing one of the biggest opportunities that you humanly have right now. You know, I always found some of these real estate terms like very interesting, right? I want to be the go-to agent in that market. Like, what the hell is a go-to agent? It doesn't even exist. I want to be the top of mind broker. Like, what is a top of mind broker? No, that's not what you want to be. You want to be a human being that people can rely on that has a relationship with people. I want to be the relationship broker. That's who I want to be. I want to be me, right? Like Melissa should be Melissa, Deanna should be Deanna, right? Lloyd should be Lloyd, Mo should be Mo. We all should be our authentic selves because what we often forget is that's what the people are already connected with. You don't need to reinvent this stuff. The second part of this is being planned and purposeful in what you're currently doing with people. If you know that this ongoing meeting in person is a great way to retain and grow your business, you need to start listening and asking triggered questions. So you understand what the people like, where they like to go, what their favorite restaurants are, and all these different things. You want to curate the experience that you want to give them while you're working with them. The Ford, yes. If for people that don't know what Ford is, if you don't know how to talk to somebody, I think too, it's the best way to connect with someone. It's like, how's your family doing? How's work? What exciting things do you have recreationally planned? Like, do you have any dreams or any goals that I can help you with? Ford. You need to start planning what you're doing with these people, right? Like, if you think about it, let's see, who am I going to use for an example? Deanna, I'll use her. I met her on a boat on this private client network tour, and her and I spent the time talking about like life and change and transition and meditation and yoga and exercise and wellness and personal development. So at any point, if I want to connect with her, if I see a cool quote online or anything like that, I can. And look, even she knows that I'm into this. So a couple of years for Christmas, she's mailed me a nice note with this Beat Yesterday bracelet. And I wear it every day because that's like who I am and like kind of how my mind works. Right. But if she never took the time to have that conversation with me, she wouldn't know that about me. Right. But now we have something that we could continue our relationship and talk about. Right. So how well do you know the people that you're meeting with? So think about this. When someone shows up to meet you and you haven't seen them in a while, and they remember all the things that were important to you, what kind of experience does that create with another person? Right? So our leadership coach, David's on here. I'm going to spotlight him. And I want David to talk a little bit about listening, right? And how listening really affects another person's experience. And, you know, my experience with David was I was his student and I went through his leadership training. And I remember the listening session and I remember going in there, I'm like, this sounds really interesting, but how much stuff could you possibly talk about? And there was like a worksheet like this. And I remember him saying this, and I'll never forget this in my life. It's, if someone doesn't tell you at least once a month that you're a good listener, you're a terrible listener. It's a low bar here. So David, you want to talk to them a little bit about listening and from a filter of curating an experience that they could stay in touch with their clients?
Sure. Thanks, Chirag. Good morning, everybody. Glad to have you here. From my point of view, as human beings, the single most valuable thing we can do to create results in our lives and in the lives of others in their lives is to have them have a feeling of being heard, or in a sense, to be related with. In other words, as human beings, we're social species. We don't exist like the polar bears at the North Pole. We long to be connected with other human beings. We form family groups, we form business groups, we spend our lives with others. We also have this experience of not being heard sometimes, not feeling connected to others. The single greatest thing we can do is relate to others in a way that they feel related to. I always say, no one will be influenced by you unless and until they feel related to by you. So if your goal is to influence someone to buy a service from you, to marry you, to clean up their room if they're your kids, they're not going to do it until they feel related to by you. And so you need to be able to relate to them in a way that they need or want to be related to. And that's all about listening. If we make any interaction about ourself and our own agenda, we're not relating to them on their terms. But if we can have that interaction in the relationship on their terms, then they recognize we're coming to their space, meeting them where they are, understanding their concerns, their excitement, or use the Ford model, their family, their occupation, their recreation, their dreams. All of this is all around us communicating with them and having an experience with them on their terms rather than ours. The challenge that so many of us have in life, especially in sales, is we want to tell people what wonderful things we can do about them or how much money we can get them for their house. And we're talking to them on terms that we think might be attractive to them, but they're coming out of our perspective rather than theirs. And so we have the opportunity to listen every single day to someone else, especially when it's a kind of a serious situation for them. Chirag has said many times that this is the single biggest purchase that someone makes in their life. And my feeling is, as real estate agents, we're so lucky to be a part of the biggest purchase that anyone will ever make. But what comes along with that is confusion, fear, excitement, a whole bunch of emotions. And if we can't connect to that part of it too, then we're just a person who's like a transaction coordinator for them, rather than a person who can help them, support them, and guide them.
You know, when you think about this, right, I want a couple of you to share in the chat as you listen to this, what comes up for you, right? What would you do differently after hearing what we're saying? How are you going to change the way that you work with people? How are you going to change the questions you ask? And ultimately, how are you going to change it you listen? And listening, right? Here's a good one. Listening is you only really listen if you remember. If somebody's talking and you're not really present, you're not really listening, right? It's mind-blowing. But when someone doesn't know if you're listening, or they're wondering if you listen, and then you repeat it to them, that's when magic happens, right? You know, when we do these calls with people, every time I've ever done a coaching call, right? Like somebody calls and they ask about coaching for the first time. I sit down and I ask them, you know, like, tell me, I go through that same whole Med-C process, you know, like, you know, what motivated you right now to want to invest and grow your business? What are your expectations of a coach? What are your disappointments? What are your concerns, right? Has this ever gone bad for you? Like, what are your challenges, right? What is missing in your business, in your life? If we're sitting here 12 months from now, like, what does success look like? And then at the end, I'm listening, right? And then this is where people really are thrown off. So I would say, Melissa, if I heard what you're saying correctly, I would say, this is what you want. This is what you want. These are your expectations. This is where it went bad. In a perfect world, your life would look like this. This is the next level of your business. These are the 3 different things you're trying to sort through. And what you're really looking for us is this. And people are just like, holy shit. And they're like, what just like, and there's that instant connection. Because the second you realize that this all has nothing to do with you, it's like that scene in the Matrix where all the bullets stop, right, David?
Absolutely. You know, what Chirag is talking about here is the skill we call paraphrasing. To be able to feed back to another person what you heard in your own words, not just necessarily the facts, but how they feel about them as well, is proof. It's demonstrating evidence that you were listening to them. When you say, first, I heard you say this, and I understand your biggest concern is that, and you're really kind of confused about XYZ. When you feed that back to them, what you're doing is proving to them that you heard them. And this is such a rare experience in our life that it stands out, exactly like Chirag is talking about. Normally, people do such a poor job of listening that we spend our lives not being listened to. And that's why I say, if somebody says to you, thank you for listening, or you're a good listener, if you hear that once a month, you're creating powerful impacts on people, because if they feel compelled enough to say that to you, what they're really saying is, I've had a powerful experience of being connected to by you, and I feel so compelled by that experience that I just need to tell you that I feel that way. It's really a powerful, powerful statement that you've connected.
Bingo. So look, a couple things, right? Our March Madness is how do I A, track all the people that referred me business, B, said love, now that the world's opening back up and, we've probably spent more times in our home than ever before. I'd love to take you out for a cup of coffee. So what's the difference? I see people are going to ask me, well, why coffee? Why not lunch? Why not dinner? Because this is just how our minds work, right? It all depends on the relationship and how busy the person is, right? Coffee is low entry. It's like 30 minutes in and out. It's a very low out, right? Lunch is like an hour. You could generally put it within an hour. But for your schedules, just remember, when you do a lunch, it's the time of going there. It's the time of coming back, right? And the lunch. You literally probably lose like 2 hours in your day doing it. Dinner can be an endless thing. And if you're going to do dinner, depending on who the client is, right? If they referred like a good amount of business, you might want to do a one-on-one dinner. If your clients are all business owners and that type of stuff, they're entrepreneurs, you'll want to do a dinner with a group of people because that's something that'll bring value to them, right? So again, this goes back to listening during the transaction. Is this all?
And I would add, it's really easy in coffee right now. If these are people that you haven't heard from in a while, it's so easy to just say, hey, let's sit down a little bit. Tell me about what this whole pandemic pandemic experience has been about for you. What's it really been like for you and your family? And you could build the whole conversation around listening to what their experience has been. It doesn't have to be COVID. It could be anything. It could be, oh yeah, I heard your son was going to have a surgery on his knee a couple of months ago. How did that turn out? How's he doing now? If you're acting out of genuine interest and curiosity, it's very easy to have a conversation that the other person will be delighted to have with you. What I really mean is they're delighted to have that conversation about something that's important to them, and you're showing true interest in it. And that's it. It's not difficult to do.
I think we will go, I know, we're going to go deeper on listening. And we'll have David do a whole series on listening, as I've seen some of these messages come in. So I want to do a couple things with the rest of our time today. Number one, there's some scenarios that you guys have posted into our group that are very important, and I want to go through them. And then the other thing is I want to break you guys into Zoom rooms for a few minutes today, so you guys can all kind of just talk to each other and network a little bit and share something that you're going to do differently and how you're going to connect with people, right? So the first scenario is, buyer, when do you think this market will settle down so we don't have to overbid or do all these crazy things to get a home? Anyone hear that one lately? So what someone essentially is asking you is, do you have, Celeste, a crystal ball that can tell me the future that no analyst, no stock market, or no person can predict? Correct? If you knew the answer to that, wouldn't you be pretty rich? That's like almost knowing when to short a stock. That's literally the same thing they're asking you, correct? Like, when's this going to go down so I can short it? It doesn't work that way, right? But this goes back to listening. Under every one of these crazy statements they have is a fear and a concern. That's all this is. The fear is, I don't want to overpay. Who wants to overpay for anything? The fear is, I'm not going to have a home. Do I have a chance to get one? The concern is, if the whole market drops and I buy this asset and I'm so leveraged into it, what am I going to do? The fear is, I'm going to spend all this money. I'm still not going to get what I want. I was talking to a friend the other day, and they literally go, in my life, I thought if I was buying a home between up to like $3 million, it'd be my dream house. And he explained it to me. And he goes, it seems like some of these homes are just habitable at that price. He goes, this is crazy. And so we had this conversation, and he kind of complained, and I kind of just listened. So I said, great. So knowing what you know, can you control what other buyers are willing to pay for homes? Said the same thing I said to you. He goes, no. So I go, so then why the hell do you want to move? If you're this unhappy, rent for a year, rent for 2 years, and then buy a house. like, so when you're talking to buyers about this, number one, you need to address their concerns. That's the first part about this. I really hear there's a concern. Are you concerned that you don't want to overpay? Right? And they're going to say yes. The second thing is, are you also concerned that you're going to have to give up a lot and compromise on the home? Yes. I would imagine that that's not a great feeling. They're going to say no. So really, all we can look at is the market trends, what's going on in the world, and figure out what's best for you. The market trends, what's going on in the world, and what's best for you. What we do know in the market trends is for the last, like in most markets, 16 months, month after month, the prices have gone up. Right? So could they potentially go down? Yes. But could they continue to go up? Yes. Interest rates are going up. So in a raising interest rate market, do more buyers want to buy before they continue to go up? Because they're starting to go up, right? Like 3.875 is a deal. Now they're above 4%. Now they might get close to 5%. Like, so people might still want to buy. And the reality is close to 70, 80% of people are reconsidering where they live because now you can work remotely. So these are all factors that are outside of your control, right? But number one, you have to make sure you're not lecturing somebody. And this is a two-way dialogue. A lot of this for some of these buyers is just getting the concerns out and being heard. Sometimes they say, right, David, listening is the best advice you can give. Are you guys getting clarity on how to have this conversation now? And then at the end of it, just ask them like, I know you really want to buy a house, but what's your plan B based on you're feeling things being overpaid and not having to do all these crazy things? Are you okay renting? Are you okay staying? Right? And you're saying, if that's what you feel is best for you, I support you 100%. What can I do to help you? Considering neither one of us can control the market. Now, this is your chance to object. You can give me all your objections now. Having this conversation with my buyer today. So Deanna, when you have the conversation with them, offer them choices, right? Part of doing this is making somebody feel comfortable and the fact that their opinion is valid and that it matters. Had it last night. I love to see that you guys are all having this conversation because I think what you guys have drilled down on, and gals, more than any other group of agents I'm speaking to, is the cost of a bad client. There's a cost to a bad client that no one talks about. Having the talk, exactly. I love being synonymous with the word having the talk. All right, so are we all good with that scenario? Just hit yes. If you still need clarity on it, I'm happy to go further on it. All right, good. We have more scenarios. That's not the end. Okay, here's another one. In this market, my house is going to sell regardless of what I do or don't do. Why should I stage it and why should I pay you 6% when other agents will list it for less? Bingo. Who hears that one all the time? Number one, right? I actually want to read this comment here. Told the client they should rent for the next year and they took my advice. And Darlene, because you said that to people, the reputation that you'll have with your clients is impeccable because everyone else is trying to make a commission check, right? So look, when a seller says to you, why should I do it? This person will do it for less. Number one, there's a difference between perceived value and actualized value. You think in your pitch that they actually got the value out of everything that you said, but they obviously didn't. Literally in the month of April, I'm going to teach you everything you humanly need to do on how to physically present the listing pitch so they understand it. But the second part is you also have to realize what competitive commissions are in your market, right? So you have to know when to be flexible and when not to be flexible, right? That's number two. Number three is don't go assuming with the generic concierge pitch, assuming everyone wants to stage their house. Phrase that in a question. Have you considered how much money in potential equity you have that you could leave on the table by not doing A, B, C, and D? Or you could flip it around. I would say, Wayne, are you okay? You know, because when you go in there and you want to stage somebody's house, you need to know the difference in the numbers, right? Are you okay leaving $100,000 in equity for not staging and doing renovations? We find that clients really either want to unlock all the equity in their home, or they just want to sell it the way it is and get it done quicker. What scenario do you suggest works best for you? So that is a simple solution, right? So you have to remember it's what they want, right? So when you say you get what you pay for and everything else, that's confusing and that's also combative. Remember the example you used. What do you want to focus on? Maximizing your equity or saving the commission, right? And then when people say, what are you paying 6% for? You're going to say, look, selling a home today is not the hard part, right? It's number one, unlocking all the equity. Number two, it's managing the offers, the contingencies, and everything else. Number three, it's navigating a transaction. You know, when you have one or two buyers, it's very different than when you have 20. If I had 20 different things for you to choose from that all had different terms, that all had different prices, would that be confusing to you to select? And would you be wondering which is really the right direction for us to go into? Absolutely. So when somebody shares something to you, like, why would I pay 6%, right? You could say, hey, help me understand, write these words down, help me understand when you're thinking of an agent and commission, what actually is valuable to you? Help me understand when you're thinking of commission and agents is what's valuable to you, right? Then when they say, when someone said this in the chat, hey, the other Compass agents said they do it for 4.5%. I said, I completely understand that. So if you're picking a lawyer from a law firm, do you think every lawyer performs the same service? Or do you think that some offer different varyings of skill and other offerings? You have to relate it back to things that people know. And then you say to them, listen, if you feel that just focusing on what the lowest commission is what's best for you, I support you 100%. But I encourage you, if you'd like to think about it a different way, I'm focused on maximizing your equity versus what you can save. It's two different mindsets. But again, this all goes back to practicing, right? You should go in that scenario section, the scenario section of our platform, and you need to meet other people, and you need to do this every day. These questions are not going to change. It's not, it only can get easier if you practice. If you don't practice, it becomes very costly. All right, so I don't think we have enough time to go into Zoom rooms. But I wanted to see if anyone else has any other scenarios that are pressing for them. Susie, did the 6%, did our strategy work for you?
Hey, Chirag. Sorry, I'm off camera here. I'm recovering from my wrist surgery here, but it was so interesting to have the Zoom presentation with my client and then talk about the 6% in the terms that you had described it. And I did get him to look at it a different way. You know, do you want to maximize the value of your home versus do you want to focus on the commission expense, which it really isn't an expense, it's an investment. And he was on board with the 6%. And then we just said, well, what if you do both sides? And I said, yeah, I'll do it for, 5%. So everything that you had talked about really resonated with me, and I was able to convey that with confidence. So it worked. So thank you.
Wow, I think we should quote that soundbite and share it widely. That's incredible. So look, for things to change for you, you have to change. Jim Rohn quote, one of my favorites. If we keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's literally insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I would say one of the best things that I love seeing here every day is how much you guys all have changed, right? Like I can look around the screen and I see wins and we hear wins every day. And the reason I share that is someone else can do it, you can do it too. And the only difference is practice. This is not like going out and playing a sport, right? Where there's like some sort of like, like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, like these people had a gift, right? You couldn't train to their gift, but real estate you can train to. It's really quite simple. And we went through this last week, like what do you need to identify, what you need to work on, what are the skills that you need to do? And look, I'm going to wrap up on this note, and I've been sharing this everywhere. Look, I would say, someone asked me what makes me different as a coach. I would say how much I care. I don't care that you only make money. I care that your life and business get better at the same time, right? And the amount of stress and everything that people are dealing with today as agents, to some, it's unbearable. It comes with anxiety. Some people are depressed. Some people are unsure about the future. Like there's all of this stuff that comes in it. And I want to make sure that we have a place that you can openly communicate, you can openly share, and that we're giving you stuff that you can actually use that's timely and relevant, right? Because what you need to focus on are these things. It's not all the shiny penny stuff, right? It's about being able to make a difference in your own life and the life of others. Because if you can't focus on both things at once, you're going to have a problem. Right? If you don't think about yourself, you're going to be the last on the list. So Brooke is going to share with you our platform, where the role play scenarios are. I encourage you to use an action item. Every person go on there and reply to somebody and proactively reach out to them. Practice these scenarios, because like with Susie, if you practice them and you say them with confidence and with a straight face, it's magic what happens next. So I love you all. Tomorrow we have another fun day of live prospecting. Tomorrow I would love to do videos again. So please show up with your cameras on and ready to engage. And remember, there's a schedule send button. So if you're on the West Coast, you still can do this. So Brooke will show you where all that stuff is. I love you all, and I shall see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everybody.